The sun is a very energetic system, obviously. It's 9.8% the mass of our solar system. All the planets together don't even make 1% the mass of the sun. So it's very energetic. There's a lot of difficulties in analyzing the sun. Even like things that are simple that you think we know about the sun. For instance, its rate of rotation. We have a pretty good idea of its rate of rotation. However, because it is a plasma sphere, there's different rate of rotation around the equator and others, as you go up the latitude. So even something simple as the rate of rotation of the sun, or many dynamics that we see on the sun, for instance, the missing neutrino issues and so on, have crop up in our physics throughout the years. And observing the sun demands very expensive probes out there that are taking a beating with a lot of solar particle hitting the cameras and the lens, and so there's a lot of artifacts that comes up on these reels, on these videos, on these pictures that are taken of the sun by these probes. So it's very difficult to make a distinction between artifacts that are like particles hitting the lens, or various compression and decompression issues that occur with resolution issue and so on, and genuine unexplainable objects that seem to show up around the sun at times.
So are you saying that what might be going on around the sun could be objects of extraterrestrial origin?
It could be. I believe so. And I'm saying this not really lightly. I mean, it is a question of opinion. However, it is from, not just from observation of the sun over a period of, 15 years that have been, but as well from an intense and deep study in ancient civilization and this thread that one can follow when studying ancient texts and ancient cultures around the world that talks about these advanced beings that seem to have visited our planet thousands and thousands of years ago. I mean, it's in most of the ancient traditions, and that talks about their use of the sun, and their mode of traveling, their power source, looking like a little sun, and so on. And so I think there's something very, very significant there, and I think it's really, at this point in history, it's unveiling very rapidly.
Now, with a physicist with your notoriety, Nassim, you've got to be driving some of the old-line physicists nuts with some of these theories. What do you hear?
Definitely, it's definitely, my opinions there diverge widely from the main views. But, however, you'd be surprised when you talk to physicists around the world how many physicists, will concede that there most likely is life out there, and that it's not impossible that that advanced civilization out there. I mean, when you look at our evolution, in 150 years, barely, we've gone from horse and buggy to the moon and so on, and we're flying in airplanes and all this. Imagine a civilization out there that has 1,000 years of advanced technological development. They could think of traveling across the galaxy just the way we think of taking a charter plane from here to Australia.
Or even 1,000,000 years ahead of us.
That's
My
right.
gosh.
Yeah, and 1,000,000 years, very good. 1,000,000 years is not much in cosmological time.
No, nothing.
It's a blink of an eye.
Yeah, drop in the bucket.
That's right. And so people with that type of advancements in technology may think of moving across the galaxy, or even from one galaxy to another, or a universe from one universe to another, as something they do casually every day. And so, I think it's really important that we don't limit our minds and our scope by thinking that we must be the most advanced people out there, and that it's not possible for other people to come here because we can't go there. That's not an accurate assessment.
Now, what about the story about Mexican Airlines are being told to avoid certain areas in in the air to stay away from UFOs.
Yes, well, in Mexico, there's been a lot of UFO activity, especially since the eclipse of 1990. And interestingly, the increase in UFO activity was so tremendous at one point that the Mexican government pretty well straight up admitted that there was an issue in the air, in their airspace, and that they needed to start training pilots and radio tower controllers to be able to steer around the frequently flown route that these UFOs seems to utilize all the time in the region of Mexico City. And so, all that happened quite a bit of time ago, but, a lot of that information, unless you dig for it, doesn't really make it into the United States. So, since then, the Mexican government has admitted to having UFO encounters. They've released, actually, Air Force footage of filming UFOs and so on. And many other countries around the world, too, has started to release files. And there's very active groups all around the world that are led by very credible people, astronauts and military personnel and so on. They're all coming forward, including the Vatican, which is what is quite remarkable.
Yeah, something's weird going on there, Nassim, isn't there?
There is. I think we're approaching a very important time in our history where we may finally encounter civilization outside of our solar system.
Are you familiar with the work of Zecharia Sitchin, by any chance?
I am.
Okay. And, of course, for those who don't, and Zecharia was just our guest, and, he contends that 400,000 years ago, beings from another planet in our solar system called Nibiru, which is on a 3,600-year elliptical orbit, came to this planet in search of gold. They needed it for their atmosphere to protect it, and they genetically altered, the creatures who were on this planet at the time that eventually became us. And he said he was able to decide of this by interpreting Sumerian, Iraqian templates at the time in text. What do you think of that theory?
I think Zecharia Sitchin got a lot of things right, and I think that in some way, in some areas, he made an interpretation that I don't necessarily agree with. One of the assertions he makes about this Planet X that I believe actually was mistranslated from planet to comet. And you find in many other cultures around the world this concept of this killer comet that comes through the solar system once in a while. And so I think that when you actually look globally at all the different texts, you get a better picture and a more complete picture of what was going on there. So it's hard to tell. I mean, it depends on the interpretation of the text. And for sure, many of these texts are written in very ancient languages that are very difficult to decode, and much of it has to do with the interpretation of them. Some of the texts I'm involved with right now that I'm very excited about are texts that come from ancient Indian cultures and Tamil cultures that come from, the Vedic tradition and so on, that talk about extraterrestrials and flying machines and so on.
Absolutely. I mean, ancient texts, artwork depict craft. How would they come up with this thousands of years ago?
Exactly. Even the concept of a flying machine should have been, and no pun intended, alien to a civilization thousands and thousands of years ago. I mean, some of the texts that I'm examining, and some of I have a little section on my videos about that, are thought to be dated 13,900 years old. You're talking civilizations that should have been in the dark ages of humanity evolution, people that should have been in caves, barely out of caves, and for them to describe